Hey, and welcome. And really excited to welcome my friend and fellow board member, Max. How's it going, Max?
Very good. Thanks, Mark. And you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Yeah, very good. So I'm excited to go through this this deal that you've had. I don't know all the information, so it'll be great just to really go into it because it's one hell of a deal. So I'm very excited.
Yep.
So for people that don't know you, could you just give us a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, so I've been on my property journey for 9.5 years now, so quite a while. Started off very small under the Star Sports Group. Then we set up our property company together, Star Property, and we've been growing it ever since. A couple of years ago, we started forming businesses as well to help us execute on a volume of deals. And the growth has really accelerated in the last couple of years. So we're now quite a big team, company, head office, group, and investment portfolio.
Yeah. So how many's in the team? And then where you're based as well? I think that's quite interesting.
So we're based in Brighton Hove, just on the south coast. We probably have just over 30 people in our team now. That includes, like 6 or 7 in our law firm and things like that.
Okay. And then what are the other parts of the business?
So we've got construction, maintenance, insurance, law, block management, and we've got a Star Community Interest Company as well, which the supported housing. So we basically started a lot of businesses because we realized it's easier for us to start them because we don't have those startup costs because they get us as a client. And then that also gives us in-house expertise and helps us grow and scale as well.
Excellent. And your position within the business?
I'm the CEO of the group.
Okay, great. And what's your wealth dynamics profile?
So I am creator star. So just on the edge of creator and blaze, really.
Yeah, which is why you're bringing out all these new companies.
Lots of ideas, lots of starting things, try and leave it to other people to finish them. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And how long you been on Property Entrepreneur now?
So I'm just going into my 3rd year around the track now.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's 3 years. Is that on the board? Is that 2 now?
Done 1 year on the board, going into my 2nd year.
Yeah.
3rd year overall. So.
And how's that been?
Yeah, I've loved it. It's amazing being surrounded by a group of high-level people, all doing different things. As a dynamo as well, that gives me a lot of stimulation for ideas and take away things that I can put into practice in our own business. And also just the execution side of things. I was always, having started in property, I never worked at another letting agency or estate agency, or never knew what other systems people use, never worked under anyone else. So everything we've kind of figured out. So very good at having all the ideas and everything. And then what Dan does is help bring it back down into a blueprint to help you execute that in a way that you feel more in control of your business.
Yeah. And before you was in property, you was at uni, was you?
Yeah, I pretty much went straight from university, not quite straight into property, but I had a sort of year or 2 of doing bits and bobs, I'll call it, trying to some stuff and working under a few different people, figuring out what I wanted to do. Then I joined the Star Group, and they had a couple of properties, but not a property company. And then I saw an advert for 𝗁𝗗𝗄𝗏𝗏 seminar in Brighton free, and I thought I was going to go meet 𝗁𝗵𝗀𝗁𝗍𝒫𝗍𝒃, and it was just obviously a front for something else. And someone was doing a talk there, and I loved it. And I fell in love with the idea of property investment and passive income and adding value and remortgaging and all of that. And that's where I just turned around to the person I was working for, Ben, and just said, look, I love property. I put all my savings into property courses, and I'm going to go do that now. And he said, well, why don't we look at doing that together? And then 9.5 years later, we're here having this conversation.
Fantastic. Yeah. So is there any kind of like tips on people that might be in that situation? Maybe, what did you do at uni?
I did business management. I basically had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went and did something generic.
Hard to know what you want. I think it's like
so hard. You've got no experience. You don't know what any industry's actually like working in it. You might have something that you're good at or slightly drawn to, but there's so much scope for what jobs can look like. And I don't think, that comes across very well in schools, and clarifying what different roles can be like and helping you pick a direction. So yeah, if you're unsure, pick something that gives you a good skill set, I think.
Yeah. So just go through the kind of like property before we go on to this particular deal that you've got, just the kind of things you've been doing in property, just to give people a flavor as to, what you've been up to.
So we've done everything really. So we started off just doing straightforward buy-to-lets and refurbs, and then did HMOs. Then I bought my first block of flats at auction in 2015. We've done mixed use. We buy blocks of flats for our supported housing charity, converted pubs into HMO flats. I've converted offices into blocks of studio apartments to lease. Commercial mixed use I've bought in England, Ireland, Montenegro, Isle of Man, Tel Aviv, but we're mostly buying Dublin and England on the south coast in east and west Sussex. So we've done a bit of everything, every type of deal really. We're now focusing more on the bigger, chunkier stuff. If it's local to us and we know it well, we do smaller little deals as well, because it doesn't take much time, and my team can sort of help with those. And now we're going more into businesses because the return on investment is slightly higher, and anything that gives us a strategic gain for our business, we then can add a bit of value to that business, and that business adds a bit of value to our business and our investment company. And yeah, we're going in that direction now as well.
Yeah, that leads us nicely then into this deal, because it is over in Ireland, isn't it? Do you want to just tell us how long you've been operating there, and then how you came across the deal?
Yeah, so we've been in Ireland for, I'm just going to roughly guess, about 4 years now. The reason is we had a company based in Ireland that had a bit of a profit, and rather than taking that profit out, I went over to Ireland to see what opportunities there were. And I was very lucky with who I came across quite early and what they shared with me about property and finding our sort of moves and what strategies we wanted to do, basically. And so we built a small portfolio there, and then we met our current joint venture partner who rented one of our blocks of flats from us. And he's added a lot of value on the deals that we're doing, and also is the man on the ground running around finding deals, getting stuff done, because based in England, that would be quite hard to do on our own. So then I think it was June or July last year, he said, look, I found an absolute whopper here. It's enormous. It's right in the town where I live, just out 𝗄𝗶𝗹𝗹 from Dublin, a town called Ashbourne. And I think we should go for it. Okay, well, how much is it? Well, I think we'll need to bid about 13 million. I said, are you mad? And that was the start. And it was actually Adam on the course that day. He said, do deals you don't have the money for. And that was the day. In the break, I found out we'd had our offer accepted, and was like, okay, well, here we go.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a great backstory, that. So I think, yeah, it's just outside Dublin. Is it kind of like northwest of Dublin, is it?
Yeah, it's just north of Dublin. It's about sort of 30-minute commute. Yeah.
Okay. And what type of deal is it then? Just go through the type of properties involved.
So it's straight commercial. It's not quite a shopping centre just because it's not enclosed, but it's a large portion of a high street. There's different roads and stuff included in it. So it's got everything from the Irish equivalent of the NHS, which is HSE. It's got McDonald's, Boots, TSB, Specsavers, Unit, Holland and Barrett, Domino's, solicitors' offices, a big range of commercial tenants. And it had it's 176,000 square foot of commercial space effectively. And there were some vacant units as well, but it had a huge income. It had quite a few complicated problems that came with the purchase that meant we got it for the price we did. So for example, the gross income at the time we bought it was 1.64 million. So to get a deal agreed at 13 million was still pretty good. There were some service charge expenses as well in the empty units we have to contribute for. So that meant at the time we purchased, the net income was 1.48 million. So for a deal this size to get, what's that, sort of 11.5% yield or something, net yield, with opportunity to add and make that much, much better was really good.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you actually go about, because obviously there's different considerations. Talk us through the steps of how you evaluate that deal, both financially and on the legal side.
So financially, the main thing was, you've got to understand, in Ireland, it's very different to the UK for lots of reasons. But the biggest thing was how bad the crash was there, the financial crash in 2008. And so a lot of stuff went into receivership, and receivers in Ireland don't typically do much. They're not active in managing their asset. Like, you know as well as I do, you need to maintain your property, otherwise it will start going downhill. And I just use the example because it's really simple, but you know, they wouldn't let them paint the lampposts and stuff like that because they didn't want to spend money. So they weren't spending money managing it. That wasn't bringing in the right tenants. They weren't sort of prepared to spend money on a fit out to give a tenant an incentive, which would have put more rent in the building and added more value. So it was just really badly managed. There was also in this property some fire safety issues in the common areas of the flat, which shouldn't have been part of this property, but was. So we had to sort that out. There was title issues. Basically, the title plans were drawn slightly incorrectly. And so there's just an array of issues, basically. It's been really badly managed over the years. So to get your head around it and say, right, this is the situation, and this is what we need to do to resolve everything, is what we really had to do here. And I think actually fundamentally, that's something that as property investors, you need to spot what other people haven't. You need to know how to improve something that isn't quite optimal as it stands. And that's really what we did here more than anything else.
And so it did take quite a while, obviously, the legal side of things. What kind of timescales was you working on the deal?
So it took us about 9 months to get the deal through in the end. We straight away got onto the bank, and we were lucky that actually this deal catapulted us into a bigger pool of lending for the bank. So we got an amazing offer. I mean, commercial finance is quite expensive. In the UK, I've just been quoted over 7% on some stuff recently. And this we've got through at 2.58%,
wow,
which is unbelievable. Now that is very variable and Euribor linked, which has just sort of started creeping up. So maybe it's about 3.5 all in now, but it's still incredibly low. So the bank were really good with us. They worked really hard to get this deal done, which is quite, you had relationships with the people that were in charge of trying to help get this deal. So you've got their mobile number, you can call them, you can have a conversation with them rather than like computer says no, you know, typical buy to let lending. And I remember the solicitor was absolutely furious with us for this dragging out. We were like, there's so many issues here. You've not really done your bit, and you've been involved in this for a long time. I mean, he had some shouting matches on it with us when we were all, you know, the seller solicitor, our solicitors, us, the bank, everyone in a room. But in the end, he was really impressed with us and actually invited us over for, you know, to watch a local rugby match once this had all gone through and everything. And has made some good introductions for us, and we've formed a good relationship with him. So it just shows like where we were with this, and where we got to with it eventually. So that's one of the big reasons why this took so long, is to get the bank happy. There were certain things that needed to be done, which they wanted as conditions. The bank wanted certain conditions, the seller wanted certain conditions. We just had to try and find the way to get everyone singing from the same hymn sheet.
Was it a private sale? Was it receivership? What was the situation?
So it was a receiver sale. So it was Goldman Sachs actually owned the debt on this property. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And was there any like complications because of that situation? Were they trying to impose any timescales or anything like that?
They wanted it done very quickly. I think they realized though that they were unrealistic in their expectations, and that a lot of the issues that we were trying hard to overcome them, we were making progress with them, and that realistically, if they went to another buyer, which they did do at one point, that they would have the same issues.
Yeah.
And so really the best way was that we were actually making progress to resolve them. And in the end, we just made enough progress that we were ready first.
Yeah.
It was a contract race in the last, you know, couple of months.
I know you're getting quite stressed towards the end.
Massively so. And I mean, just to put things into perspective, I mean, if you want to do big deals, you're going to incur big fees. But because we had several sets of solicitors working on this, our abortive cost would have been over £250,000. Wow. So yeah, I was very, very stressed. And it was all happening around the time of the Tenerife board retreat. And I was thinking, God, I don't think this is going to happen in the end, you know. And yeah, we pulled it off and managed to get it all through and done, and had to bridge a couple of other assets to get this through. But now we've done that and got this through, and paid off that bridging and everything. So yeah, there's some challenging times on it, but we've got there. And not only that, we've added quite a lot of value in a few different ways, which I can talk through now if you want. And yeah, it's really, really exciting, and so glad we managed to get it over.
Fantastic. So was it kind of relief, or was it kind of elation, or was it like a bit of a mix?
Well, we had to stretch ourselves to get this done. So at one point I was like, I'm not sure what I really want to happen here, which was insane to think like that, but just in your moments of doubt. But yeah, it was more relief that, you know, it was over, having thought it would fall through so many times. But it was also just excitement. We've done it. And, you know, our biggest deal before this was, I think, 2.65 million. So to do this as 13 million was just such a big leap forward that, you know, it's something that really put us on the map as a major player, both in the UK and Ireland. We got a bit of decent coverage from it. So, you know, press coverage and everything. So, you know, we see ourselves differently having done this deal, and that's quite nice as well.
Yeah, huge congratulations. Yeah,
very much. Yeah.
So do you want to just go through then the value add that you've been able to do on? Sorry, before we do that, when did you actually complete? Just so that give people
April this year.
April, yeah. Just give people some kind of like context on that. Yeah. So yeah, you're coming up to like 5 months, 6 months. What have you been able to do then since?
So there was one part of this, which is basically the very end of the high street, that had never really been rented, and the HSE and NHS has said they wanted it, and then the government sat and quite managed to make that happen and everything. So one of the things is that there's a destination retailer is one that someone deliberately goes to, so a dentist or an optician, and you travel to go to that. So that doesn't need to be in the middle of the street, that can be at the end of the street. So we're doing things like giving them incentives to move to the end to free up the more in-demand areas of the high street, getting in the right retailers, which means there's more footfall, which will attract other retailers in. So all in all, the main thing is that we've added 108 grand in rent from existing tenants per year. We've added 200 grand in heads of terms with new tenants, including some really long leases and some great covenants and private finance, private medical company, which is I think throughout Europe, and you know, really strong covenant there, which will add a lot of value to the building. And then that 308 grand of extra rent, because of the empty units now, the service charge won't be our responsibility. That saves us 70 grand on the service charge as well. So we've added 378 grand. So the net income has gone up once those all go through 25% from 1.48 million to 1.85 million. So for that, on a deal which you're all in for on 13 mil, is a huge net yield. And then we've also got we're likely to get planning for between 24 and 48 service departments as well. So it depends slightly on what happens with a couple of the tenants and getting back some space. So that might take a little while longer to get, but that'll be huge value add as well, especially as Airbnb's outlawed in Ireland very heavily. So there'll be service departments, which will be quite high in demand. And Dublin also took in a lot of Ukrainians. So hotels are ridiculously expensive now. There's not really enough space, and they had a really big property shortfall anyway. So for service departments, it'll be really strong. And that will again add footfall to the town and increase the turnover there. So
and is that going to be new build or conversion?
It's conversion, so basically some empty space above retailers at the moment, which is just completely unused. So again, because it's such a big deal, the local town centre, you know, the local council are in quite good communication about what they want to see happening, and with the receivers not wanting to do everything, they're actually quite excited about some of these things, and are even looking at changing some of the walkways and the ways the town works to help get a bit more buzz from it all. So once you get to that sort of level, you find people actually talk to you. Whereas normally as a property investor, you're trying to get through to councils and banks, and you sort of end up exhausted by the end of the day, having made no progress a lot of the time. So it's quite nice doing something that actually people want to talk to you about. Yeah.
Are you looking then to refinance that? At what point would that be? And have you got any kind of like ideas to numbers?
Yeah, I mean, we will refinance it. I think probably not in the next 18 months. We'll hold the existing finance for at least 2 years. It will be at the point where we've got all of those rents are in, maybe when we've increased that as well, because there's still some empty space in there in that 1.85 million. So if we can get that sort of 2 million quid, it might, even at a 10% yield, which I think will be fairly pessimistic, especially without any title issues, someone being able to come along and buy it with a mortgage. 10% would be quite a low valuation on it, and that would put it at 20 mil. And then if we got 65%, we'd pull all our money out at that level. So that's our sort of 18-month aim, which I think is very realistic based on the progress we've made so far. And
wow, that'd be fantastic, that, wouldn't it? And like you say, 10% you would hope to get, especially with some of the covenants that you've got, you'd hope to get like a better
exactly. There's plenty of covenants in there that would be really sort of 4 or 5% covenants, you know, when you've got the equivalent of the NHS in there and things like that. So
yeah. Okay. So you discussed, you mentioned a couple of things. So just about issues. So people that maybe doing deals at the moment, what kind of issues did you come? I know we're going to come on to your top tips, but anything about kind of overcoming those issues would be really good.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with an issue for me is always what you're in control of resolving. So we needed to get the management companies, and it's slightly different in Ireland, so just bear with that, but the equivalent of the block management basically needed to be on board with our plan and needed to agree to our figures to sign off and hand those areas back to them, which they should have always been. So anything which is outside your control needs to be your priority, because that could take the longest and is the biggest risk area. But essentially it was mainly that, because once we'd done that, the title issues, that just needed an architect to go around and readdress and shape the titles, and it was all just cost. Nearly every challenge, I say, comes down to two things, and one is time and the other is money. So as long as you've got a plan for if it drags on and costs more, normally with enough energy, attention, good enough network, knowing who to go to, and again, that's where Property Entrepreneur really helps, is between everyone, someone knows the right person to solve the issue. If you can articulate what the challenge is that you need to overcome, someone will help and make an introduction. So it's just focusing on that, really, knowing what our biggest obstacles were and focusing on our red flags first and getting that done. It took longer than we thought, but we got there eventually.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So just then go on to your top 3 tips then.
So my top 3 tips are going to be this time around risk management, given that what's been happening in the last few days, and this has been recorded just at the end of September. So with the mortgage markets, some lenders withdrawing, interest rates going up, etc. And have you heard of the infinite monkeys on a typewriter? I don't know if I've talked to you about this before.
Yeah, I think you have actually.
Yeah. So it's the idea that a monkey in front of a typewriter will randomly type a letter and then run off. But with enough monkeys, they will randomly type T-H-E, and you've got the, and then there'll be a space. And with infinite monkeys, unlimited amounts, they will write every email, job description, letter, book, song ever written and ever to come, because there's infinite amounts of them. And the idea is that stretches your mind to nothing is really impossible. Nothing you should consider to be certain or impossible. And I think that's where a lot of people say, oh, that won't happen. Well, won't it happen? Or is there just a 95% chance it won't? Or a 90% chance it won't? It's still 1 in 10. So 90% chance you'll be fine. It's not that high if the consequences are enormous of it not being okay. So just thinking about that at the moment is really good. And like I said, time and money are the main cost implications and things. Relating to that is what I termed a pre-mortem. So post-mortem is what happened after the event and how did basically something go wrong. So a pre-mortem is imagining before you go into a deal, it's all gone wrong. And by saying that it's all gone wrong, you think, well, how did it go wrong? Whereas at the time, you can't see it going wrong. So you need to say, no, it has gone wrong now.
Right.
And then you stretch, and then that way you find the biggest risk areas. You look at those, and if you say, well, I'm actually really comfortable that if it does go wrong there, I can solve that problem. Okay, in which case you're managing your risk well in this scenario. So infinite monkeys and the pre-mortem. And then the third one is the black swan, which was termed by Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his book, which he released in 2007. I think it was, I've forgotten the title of it, but basically in 1696, black swans were discovered. Until then, everyone would have thought there was only white swans, and so would have confidently said that black swans did not exist. So the point is, you don't know what's going to go wrong or what's going to change, but you know that something can. And at the moment, black swans are COVID. It's Russia invading Ukraine. I would just say that there is a much higher chance of black swans appearing in the next 6 to 12 months. So don't assume that things will be as they are now, and you might not be able to see what's going to go wrong, but something can go wrong at the moment. And I think if you're covered off and you've got enough time and money, you can solve problems, then I think you're fine. But do factor that in, especially going into these uncertain times, which I think is going to be an opportunity for everyone, but just don't overstretch on a level of risk at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, very good and valid tips. Yeah. So you mentioned about the black swan. Ian was just saying about the best book he's read this year was the negotiation book, Don't Split the Difference.
Oh yes, yeah, I need to catch up on.
And that guy who was the negotiator for the FBI, he set up a company called Black Swan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's quite a good connection.
Yeah.
So for anybody that's then looking to contact you, what would you say, Max, is the best way, and also what you're particularly interested in?
So we are, if anyone is an investor or has money in the bank getting a low return, we can offer much, market beating returns. We're also looking for good deals all the time, mainly in the South Coast or in Ireland. That might be blocks of flats, mixed use or commercial with yields, with good tenants and 10% plus yields. And then we've got a group of companies that offer services. So if anyone needs any of those services, has a property that they'd like to rent to the supported housing charity, or like to use it for insurance or law or mortgages, then they can do, and get in touch. Otherwise, if they want to follow us and see what we're up to, Star Property UK is our Instagram and LinkedIn handles.
Okay, excellent. Great to get you on again, and huge congratulations to you and the team on landing that deal. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.